Hi everyone. Today we're going to be embroidering the butterfly wood embroidery kit. First of all, I would like to apologize for the lighting. I am working on this tutorial at night once everyone's off to bed, so I'm using an overhead light and I know it's pretty harsh, so I apologize, but I gotta work with what I got. This is the final stitched kit, and here we have a blank. So your kit should come with a little cheat sheet. It might look a little bit different than this. This was my work in progress document. So let me just explain a little bit about what these arrows are. So these arrows indicate not only in what direction you should stitch, but also on which side. So here, for instance, we have the arrow here. So you would start stitching from the bottom, work your way up. The stem stitches would be going inward. So let's say, for example, it would go this way and that way, etc. So, and if the arrow's pointing down, we will start there, and the stitches would be going inward this direction. Etc. So here for this leaf, this is a good example. So here we will start at the top and work our way down, and the stitches would be on the outside. I hope it makes sense. So you'd go there, 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 as opposed to starting in the inside and going this way. That's not what we want. We want to start on the outside. This arrow here, I hope it's not too confusing, but this arrow indicates for this entire line. So this one will start there, and we will stitch our way this way. Again, inside where the arrow, where the line is. So I hope that makes sense. The reason why I created this little cheat sheet is for people that don't necessarily want to carry their full book, their full instructional book with them. They could just take the sheet with them, and it's gonna have pretty much at a glance what you need to do to accomplish your kit. So to get started, I think the easiest step that we want to do first, it's going to be this element here. That's because we're going to go over stem stitch, which is pretty much used for all the elements throughout the kit, and then we're going to have straight stitches. So let's go ahead and start with that. So looking at our cheat sheet again, the arrow is on the left side of the stem, and it starts at the bottom. So we will start there at the bottom, and we will work our way up, stitching in this direction. So I've made a pretty thick, chunky knot at the end, and we're going to start there. And we are working on a stem stitch. So again, the arrow on our cheat sheet was inside, well, more, it was actually on the left side of the stem. So we're going to do our stitches in that direction. So for stem stitch, you start at the bottom. We're going to be starting there. You're going to skip hole 2 and go to hole 3. You're going to come up hole number 4. And back down hole number 2. So we're going to be going down on this side. So we went down on this side as opposed to entering the hole on this side of the thread. So now we're going to go to hole number 5. And we're going to go down hole number 3. So as you can see what I'm doing, I'm going this direction as opposed to this direction of the thread. Now And this is essentially just connecting the dots even to even and odd to odd. So now we're in hole number 6, and now we're going to go down hole number 4. And we're going to continue in this pattern. So the reason why I included those arrows is because this is the way that the kit should be stitched in order to have the smoothest curves possible. If you were, I mean, you could go ahead and try and stitch it in any kind of style you like or any kind of direction you like, just so you could see the different look that you're gonna get. I think that the way I indicated with the arrows is the smoothest way. If you were to do this curve, stitching it on the opposite, it might look a little bit jagged. So there we go. We've completed our stem stitch. So now what we're gonna do, we are gonna do straight stitches, which, you know, very simple stitch. You're just gonna go up one hole, down the other. We're gonna go ahead and do these little lines first. Now to stitch these little round leaves, again, very simple straight stitches, but the key here to have these look really nice and flat is, so if you look at them, they're not really bulging at the center. They're pretty flat and even, and they have like kind of like an even curve around. The trick to these is we're going to start stitching from the center down as opposed to from the outer shape in. We're starting from the center and kind of fanning. We're going to be alternating from one side to the other to the center. So I'll start here at the very top one. As you can see, I'm going up the very center line. We're going back down. And now we're just going to be alternating the sides from right to left. So as you can see, the little leaf is shaping and it's not bulky at all. It's nice and flat and even. And we're just alternating. Oh, hate it when this happens. I don't think I'm gonna have enough to stitch that last little stitch, but let's see. Okay, we did it. All right, so we were able to get that one done. So in this hole here, there's already a lot of tension with all the threads going in there, so it's not major if you don't secure this. You could actually just leave it and trim it. But if you like, just to get into the habit, for the rest of the kit, we will be securing our thread at the end by stitching it below a few of the previous stitches. So that's what I'm doing now. We're done. And that is how you stitch those little round leaves. Now I'm going to go ahead and stitch these little petals. So what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to secure my thread by going under some of the previous stitches. There is a knot here, so I'm just pulling it through and it kind of locks in. And that's just so this stitch will be easier for me to do. So I went up that hole there, hole number 1, and I'm going to go back down that same hole. I'm going to leave a loop behind. I'm coming up hole number 2, which is the top of the petal, and I'm just going to pull slowly. I'm going to go through the hole. I'm going to go through the loop, and I'm going to continue to tug until I get to a nice shape, gently, and then I'm going to go back down that same hole. Alright, so there we have our first petal. I'm going to go ahead and do the other 3 the same way. Coming up hole 1 there, going back down hole 1, coming up. You see what I'm doing? I'm kind of leaving a loop behind and holding it with my nail. Coming up hole number 2, through the loop, pulling gently and going back down to kind of tack down that little loop. All right. Okay, see, I pulled too tight, so now I just have to bring it up a little bit. There we go. All right, so now we have our 4 petals. I'm gonna go ahead and just secure the thread, and that's okay if the back stitches are a little loose. It won't affect the project at all. So go ahead and secure your thread. Don't pull too tight. It just needs to be enough so everything is secure. Now we're gonna do French knots for the center. So the French knots will only be these 2 holes there, and these 2 petals will also have French knots. So you're really doing these 4 here. So for this flower, it's those 2 plus the holes for these 2 petals. So do the French knots. We're going to start there. We're going to go through that hole. We're going to wrap our needle with the thread twice. 1, 2, and then we're just going to go back down that same hole. And just push through. You're gonna get kind of a loop here. What I like to do is I like to add tension to it. I hold it and I'm pulling. So, and then just kind of letting it go. So there we have the 2. Now we're going to make a knot here and here. So this might get a little tricky. You don't want to drag any of that thread that's already in there. So just be careful when you go through the hole. 1, 2. 2 wraps. We're going back down that same hole. There we go, our 4 little French knots. Each one was 2 turns. All right, we're gonna go ahead and jump over to embroider this little flower. I believe it's called like a tassel stitch. It's very simple technique, but the effect, the result is just really, really pretty. Your instructions have this flower indicated with straight stitches, connecting those dots. Now these straight stitches are essentially just locking in your petals, but I want to just mention that we won't only be going in one direction, but we're also going to be stitching an excess. We kind of want to create as many stitches as possible to kind of secure the little tassel that we're going to be making. Hopefully that shows well. So I've already threaded my needle with the chunky knot, and I'm going to go up this hole here, and I'm going to go down this hole, but before I do that, I'm going to take my peach thread and we're going to make the tassel. Okay, so the way I do it, I wrap around the thread around these two fingers about 5 times. I leave a little tail. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that leaves me a loop that's about 1 inch in diameter. So what we're gonna do, we're just gonna take our little loop and we're just gonna like combine it at the center. You could leave the long tails because we're gonna trim them off later. Now that we have our loops formed, we're gonna lay it down. You don't have to be too careful at the moment with the size or it being even. We're just gonna go ahead and secure it first, and then we'll make those adjustments. So you go back down the hole, and this is where you could kind of like pull and tug one way or the other to kind of make it even. And we're gonna go ahead and secure it to tack it down. I would say 3 times. 2 would be enough, but I'm just gonna go ahead and do 3. So now that we are at this stage, we're gonna go ahead and pull the little loops forward, or in this case downward. And like I mentioned, we're not only gonna be going across, connecting those dots horizontally, but we're also gonna be creating excess just to kind of secure everything down nice and neat. And we're gonna start at the top hole there. Hopefully you could see it. And back down. And a little bit of tension. We're gonna go back up that second hole. Down. Now this one here, you can't make too tight, otherwise it's gonna slip. So let's just go ahead and leave it there. We're gonna go ahead and come back up that first hole we started on, and we're gonna see that slipped, and that's okay. We're gonna continue securing it, and you won't be able to see that peach. And this time, instead of going down, we're gonna go ahead and go to create an X. And you could really go in any pattern that you like to secure. At this point, it's really more about covering up these peach strands. So there you go. We've completed creating that little bud. Now all we have to do is trim these guys. I don't like to go too low. I kind of like leaving a little bit of a little bit behind, just so it doesn't get frizzy. If you were to cut it very close to the green, it would just kind of frizz up there at that end. So there we go. You could kind of spread out your little petal shapes and you have a beautiful, adorable little flower. And we're gonna go ahead and move on and start working on the butterfly. This has 3 stitching techniques. The inside, actually 4. The inside is made up of stem stitches. All the outside shape is couching. We have French knots, and we have chain stitch and a few straight stitches. I guess total of 5. But all of them are very simple. The tricky thing with the butterfly is that we need to start by embroidering all of the inside shapes. That is because it could kind of feel a little bit complicated or complex when we're working on following all the little lines. So starting to embroider these will be the easiest way. It also gives you a lot of space to be able to secure the gold thread. The gold thread is a little bit tricky to knot. It's a little bit too thin and it's just gonna pull through the holes. So if we have all these stitches to anchor our thread to, that's just gonna make our life a little bit easier. I'm gonna go ahead and stitch all the inside shapes, and I will come back once that's done. Now that the center part of this wing is complete, I'm gonna go ahead and stitch the outside shape using couching stitch. Now your kit was supplied with 2 needles and you will be needing both of them for this step. So I have gone and threaded my needle. I've doubled it up with both the dark blue or the dark teal and my gold. Okay, so this is also doubled up. So it's gonna help prevent a lot of fraying. Start here, third thread. And now we're just gonna go ahead and bring it back down this hole here, but we're gonna leave a lot of slack because we're gonna be forming it and tacking it down with a gold thread, okay? So you could leave it like that. As you can see, it's just hanging back here. Now with our gold thread, first we're gonna go ahead and secure this thread to these stitches, because if we try to just have it go through that hole, it's just gonna pull through. So we're gonna go ahead and secure it down to some of these stitches here. Now that it's anchored and secured, you could go ahead and begin. So we're just gonna go ahead and follow the shape. I'm gonna go up. We're gonna go ahead and start laying our thread down. And we are going to go ahead and start securing our thread. You don't need a lot of tension after the first or second couching stitch. Then you can kind of relax it, especially as we get into curves. It doesn't need to be very tight. If you find your thread getting tangled, just take your time. We're pretty much at the end of our gold thread. We're going to go ahead and secure it. And it looks like I made a big mess here, but it is what it is. We're gonna go ahead and secure it somewhere where I could have a little bit of tension. Okay, so now that we're done, we could actually go ahead and we could secure this other thread, and then we could just trim it off. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and move on to create the body of the butterfly. We're going to start off by creating one single straight stitch to start anchoring our chain stitches, and at the very top there's going to be a French knot. It's just a simple straight stitch. Make sure you add tension. We're going to go ahead and start creating our chain links. Go up. We're going to go ahead and go down this previous stitch, that little straight stitch. If it's too tight, just loosen it up a little bit. Back down that same hole we came through. And we're going to continue. I'm going to go ahead and go below that loop, that previous link. I'll turn the thread here so it doesn't look like it's confusing. So here we go. Go back down. It might be a little bit tricky to go through and catch accidentally some of those stitches, so what you could do, you could just flip it over, flip it upside down, and go through the bottom on this side and pull through. These links don't have any particular direction to go in. Okay, now that we're there and we came back, we went down that hole, we can't come back up that hole to make the French knot because it's just gonna come out. So we're gonna go ahead and anchor this thread. It's getting messy, that's okay. We could go ahead and just anchor this thread in one of those stitches. Don't add too much tension, just a little bit. It's just really to secure it. We're gonna go ahead and now make our French knot. It's just 2 turns and back down, just the same way we did the French knots for the little daisy. And just go ahead and add tension when you're pulling down, and there you go. So the only other element left to stitch to complete the butterfly would be the French knots there, but essentially that is it. The final elements needed to stitch are these little red berries, and these are, all they are is French knots, 2 turns around the needle, and I try not to add a lot of tension so they could kind of stay on the larger side. There you go. As you can see, these French knots are looser. They're not as tight as the ones that we made for the little daisies. And I think they turned out pretty cute. So I think those are all the stitches needed to complete your embroidery piece. If you have any questions, please write them down in the comments below and I will definitely be able to respond to you. And to purchase this kit or any other kits, please check out my website, flourishingfibers.com. The link will be in the description as well. Please check it out. If you want to follow for more tutorials, please make sure that you subscribe and hit that bell icon. Will be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Have a good one.